All right, everybody knows what petrified forest is. Fossilized trees. They're all petrified trees. Now, this particular colored material that's in here percolated down and took over the material that was inside, the cellular material, and it ended up turning into stone in all these different colors. And that's because that was the particular dominant material that was in the soil when these became encapsulated. And everybody understands that's a tree, but you can never tell that by looking at that. You can only tell it by the external structure, and it's exactly the same with a lot of my stuff. And the reason is because this is nucleophilically changed. It's invaded. All life is very ionic. It's always moving. There's chemicals interacting with each other. It has a lot of chemical mobility. And when things percolate down through the soils, they invade this. It's just a natural mineralization process. I believe it's called permineralization. It's totally understood. Totally understood. And this is what's happening with the stuff that I have. Now, this is the process. You can read it. It's during the late Triassic, and the same area over here is supposed to be the late Triassic, 200 million-ish. Down trees accumulated in the rivers, and the sediments containing volcanic ash covered them. Groundwater dissolved. Silica. Silica. Remember that. Silica is a polar molecule. They're little platy silicates, and they drift down through the soils, and they create electrical currents. This is known, this is understood, and it's been proven up in Alberta, Canada, University of Alberta. But anyway, the silica from the ash carried into the logs where it formed quartz. Another polar mineral, and then the quartz start to crystallize, and they propagate. It gradually replaces all the organic material. The traces of iron oxide and other substances combined with the silica to create the varied colors. Now, iron oxides, a lot of iron oxides. Where's iron come from? That comes from life. All this stuff is products of life. And it's just, and the people that are so anti-creationist are scared to death of this. They are just petrified. They will not even look at it because they're so scared. All right, you saw that that petrified wood. This is a petrified finger, and that is the petrified blood that gushed out of the artery at the end, and that's the vein in the artery there. And there's a whole section on this. So you find, I think there's one that's called finger or something. But anyway, what's the difference between this being fossilized and that tree being fossilized? Wood rots. I explain the whole reason that this is what it is and where it is. And what's the difference between this being protected in a manner that is pretty obvious? It's some form of an appendage, a tip of a giant creature. And what's the difference between this, which is a suspected lung, and I think, prove it. All right. What's the difference of all of those things being petrified and wood being petrified? They're both under the same process. And you'll notice down here it says that the park, where the trees are found, the park has also produced many fossil vertebrates, including giant crocodile-like reptiles called phytosaurs, large salamanders, and early dinosaurs, and invertebrates including freshwater snails and clams. So this is the only reason that this is different than that particular situation, and it may not be different at all, but here it's still extremely wet, fine muds, and this was a glacial drain, and I believe these animals were impacted quickly under extremely dense, fine particulates, under extremely cold, compacted conditions, and not like flattened over the course of time, the way they would be if they were layered in sedimentary layers slowly. It's a different. I believe it's a different process because I don't see this flattening. I see somewhat flattening, but most of the structure it has still contains its integrity. Now I don't know why. Well, I'm only speculating. So that's my speculation.